I mean, that was the first spiritual disappointment I had. The other disappointments were more like the mundane disappointments. But now
Yes.
this journey of the spiritual disappointments happened, which is much more profound, because all my hope, I gave my life for this.
Yeah.
And suddenly I started to realize, maybe this is another trap. It just is, it opens up an inside world, but it is as unreal as the so-called outside world. It is self-made. It is emotional. It is created on images, on experiences. Yet it is made up. I could see it was made up.
Yeah.
So eventually I came to the same point.
You left.
This cannot be it.
Yeah.
Because if this is the outcome, that I'm losing contact and spacing out here, then I cannot stay here.
Yeah.
That is not true. I mean, many monks, if they're honest, they come to the point. They see even this has been a trap. And I started to remember a teacher that I have been in contact with before, and I forgot a little bit about him. His name was Krishnamurti. You know him, J. Krishnamurti,
Yes, yeah.
who often spoke about this. And I forgot, in that bliss bubble, I forgot about him. But I remembered, suddenly I felt this realization in me that this is maybe not absolutely true what we're having here in that spiritual tradition. So I made the decision to leave, and then I said, if this is not what I'm going to go for, I'm going to marry now. I'm looking for,
Right.
yes. So I fell in love with someone at the end of the period, and she made me leave the ashram and say, okay, if this is not, now I'm going to become a husband.
Okay.
So I followed her to Mexico and thought, this is it now. I found it again.
Yeah, of course.
Again. And I put it all on one card. It's like you said, okay, I was not holding back anything. I said, if this is not it, then I give it all into another direction. No holding back. Yeah. And of course it didn't work out. Another big disappointment, even this didn't work out. So I started to question, I mean, if nothing works in the outside, wherever you move your body to, in whatever extreme circumstances you give yourself into, it just doesn't work. You come to the same points again. So I said, the only thing that I haven't tried until now was, I didn't take into consideration that maybe I was psychologically.
So you tried therapy.
Then I went to therapy, of course. So I skipped the whole spiritual thing, and I said, okay, I'm going to go for having a psychological look at myself, what's up there. And it was quite interesting for me, because I could sense that in that approach, I started to meet my roots, where I'm coming from. Because in the moment of renunciation, what I actually did, I cut the roots. And that caused this spacing out, this feeling of drifting away into a world that is beautiful from its feelings, it's devotional, it is the love for God, but it wasn't rooted. I didn't feel that the crown lost its roots.
It's like being in the cave in the mountains.
Exactly.
Everything bliss will come
Exactly.
back
That
to
was my inner
marketplace.
caving. I called it caving in. It was my bliss bubble. So I started a pretty interesting quest in the realm of psychology that eventually made me turn around and to have a look where I was coming from. It was a very deep exploration of the system of my family, and I could see that everything in my life I have done was just like my dad. It was as extreme as he did it. Only the outside expression was a little different. So I realized, the first time I realized that me and my father are one, like the Christian tradition. And I felt it on a very grounded way, because I could see the difficulties that I had with him, that I was running away from him, never to become like him. And the more I was running, the more I became like him.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I stood still.
Okay.
It was the first time in my life I had the sense I can rest, that I don't need to run anymore. Because I was running away from this, from never wanting to be like him. Even I loved him, but it was like because I could see that all these pictures of my childhood came back, and that this is not the way I would like to live.
But there was a turning point. I have to move you on a bit.
Yes,
here.
please. So the turning point was
when you met Isaac Shapiro.
Yes. So I ended up with going into this psychological thing, and guess what happened? I became a good therapist, earned a lot of money, again the same thing, And it took me 5 years, and I said, I was so unhappy. I said, what is this? Again, nothing. It was so disappointing that the whole world of psychology, again, was empty. And I remember it was 1999 in December. It was the end of a group that I was giving. I was sitting amidst my assistants, finishing the group, and I was crying. And I said, you know, guys, I don't know what to do anymore. I know I'm good in what I'm doing, but I'm not happy. And another relationship broke down in my life simultaneously. And I was praying in that meeting that, as I didn't see any exit, I was praying, please send me something in my life that shows me the exit to this nightmare. Right. And it took 3 months later, I met a girl, which eventually became my wife. And we met on the 2nd of April. And a week later, she came to me, and we had dinner together, and she said, you know, a friend told me there's a chap called Isaac Shapiro in Munich. He gives satsang. And do you think it's good? And I said, yeah, it's good for you, go. I was so desperate, so incredibly destroyed and disappointed from all this. I would never, ever went to anything like this anymore
so
in my life.
You tried lots of things and they hadn't worked.
Anything. Yeah. I've tried everything possible.
Yeah.
I was at the end. I was not looking for a guru, not looking for a teacher. I was just not interested. And I sent her. I was like, it's good for you, go. And she came back, and the next day she said, I think it's good when you come too. And I didn't want. I was resisting, and eventually, because we were just together for 1 week, I said, okay, don't fight with her, go. And it was a Friday evening, completely tired, at the bottom. I was destroyed, frustrated. And I went there and was sitting down, and I fell asleep almost. And about after half an hour, I've heard him speaking with a chap in front, and he spoke about something and pointed to that man and said, you are that.
He pointed to you?
No, to that man on the stage.
Okay.
In that conversation, I didn't follow the conversation, he just said, you are that. Right. And in that half falling asleep, my system heard this. And it was like a lightning straight into my system. I didn't know what he was speaking about, but it was like an explosion. I disappeared for a couple of seconds, and when I opened my eyes again, everything was different. I was looking from a completely different place. It was looking around. It was tears running down my chest. I was looking at Julia, looking around, and everything that seemed to be a nightmare before was completely gone from 1 second to the other, and the feeling of being absolutely free of it. As something that wasn't real dropped from my system, the whole story, the identity, and I looked around, I looked at her, and I couldn't give it a name. I was incapable to describe it. It was just gone. And I hadn't had any reference point because I wasn't interested. I didn't even know the name Awakening. That wasn't familiar to me. So I left. After the meeting, we were speaking in the car on the way back home, and I just continued to share from what's happening here. And Julia said, what? She was just looking like this, but she felt it, but she didn't know what to do with it. I left home, and all I remembered was that sooner or later the thought came back, well, this is another experience of you. Tomorrow morning it will be the same. And it didn't. It stayed. It continued for every day. It deepened and it deepened and it deepened, and I couldn't believe it. I started to, on Monday, go back to my practice, and I saw the clients in front of me that wanted help from me, and I started to speak from that place. And I was completely confusing them because I couldn't help them anymore. Yeah. I see that what I'm doing to them and what they want from me is an illusion. It's completely nuts.